All right, let's get started. So once again, this is Josh on Zoe's Partnerships team welcoming you to our latest Zoe Merchant webinar. This is our follow-up search engine optimization presentation, working this time with Infront Webworks. We've got Ryan on the line who's going to join us in just a moment to share some information that'll be helpful for you as a Zoe Merchant. But before we do, we'd like to remind you, especially for those of you who may be new to our webinar series, about how you can participate. We offer a questions feature inside the GoToWebinar software. It allows you to submit your questions for a Q&A that will complete after the presentation. If you have questions during the presentation, however big or small, please feel free to submit them. We'll go over as many as we can within the time we've got allotted. We have an hour available for the presentation today, so hopefully a good amount of time to get to your questions. We had a lot last time, so we definitely are making sure that there's time this time. And before we get going, we just want to remind you that there are more webinars to come. We always maintain a list of our upcoming webinars on our Merchant Webinars page, which can be accessed at zoe.com/merchant-webinars. We also post recordings of any previous webinars, so if you miss a portion of this presentation or if you haven't seen some of the previous ones, you can go to that page and you can see all of the presentations that we've done. We also make the presentations downloadable in most cases. So definitely take advantage of that if you have to drop off today. But in the meantime, we're ready to get going. So I'm going to introduce you now to Ryan Knack. He's at Infront Webworks, a senior specialist there. Has been working in SEO for quite a few years and has a lot of great information to share today about the topic and how it relates to Zoe as well, so you can learn how to maximize your opportunities selling online. All right, Ryan, why don't you take it away?
Hey guys, this is Ryan Knack over at Infront Webworks. We are located out here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I just want to go over some of the experience we've had working with the Zoe platform and how to optimize it. And let's get the screen shown. There we go. Okay. I'm not sure if everybody can see the little box here on the right or not, but
looks good from here.
Okay, cool. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give my company a little plug, and we're going to go over just a little background on Infront Webworks and our team, and then we're going to dive into the meat and potatoes of what you can do if you're using the Zoe platform in order to get your sites ranking properly and some of the benefits of using them. So right off the get-go, Infront Webworks. We're an award-winning full-service digital agency. We've actually been in business over 20 years now. In this landscape, that is pretty rare, and it's pretty awesome. So I think that's a testament to the type of work that we are able to get done at Infront compared to a lot of shops that have just been kind of popping up out of nowhere in the last few years. We've designed, developed, and serviced over 1,000 websites. We've won all sorts of different awards. And over there to the right is just a bunch of little accreditations that we have. Now, what I'm a part of over at Infront, the SEO team, combined, we have over 97 years of SEO experience. Some of us have attended MIT, Stanford, Purdue, UCCS, Regis, and more schools. In total, we all possess over 59 trade certifications, and there's a bunch of little entrepreneurs that are involved in our team. I've personally been either owned solely or had partnership in 3 businesses, but combined we have owned 11 companies and partnered in 4 more. We've ranked close to 1,000 websites on the first page of Google, including tens of thousands of top keyword rankings, and we've been featured in many different magazines and many different articles across the board. So feel free upon wrapping this thing up to reach out to us if you have any questions or you want some consultation done. So this is missing one of the slides there. We're going to go over a few of the topics. The first one that we are going to go over is the robots.txt file and the sitemaps on Zoe. That is missing. All right, so I'm missing one of the slides. Forgive me. This is one of the first webinars that I've done. So I apologize about that slide missing. One of the benefits of the Zoe platform is its ability to basically generate the sitemap for you and for you to adjust its priorities. So which in turn is going to be telling Google what part of your site needs to be paid most attention to and the frequency that you want it to be noticed. Now, I'm sure you're all aware maintaining your higher ranking within Google requires consistent new content or updating and modifying of your current content. So having the ability to set the priorities in kind of a set it and forget it manner is going to help to alert Google of the updates to the pages that you want the most attention paid to, and also to the efficiency of the crawling by Google. Now, if you have an e-commerce site with thousands of products and you're making the updates to the sitemap manually, like I have in the past, sometimes things are going to slip through the crack. You know, it's human nature. Nobody's perfect. If you're making those manual updates, sometimes things are just going to slip. So having that automatically built in saves a ton of time, and it also reduces my ability to mess it up to almost around 0%. So if you're working on a brand new site, this is one of the most important steps initially to getting your site discovered. The robots.txt file. Now this is pretty useful to allow or disallow or tell the search engines when indexing the page whether to follow its links, archive it, allow or disallow. So this is a very simple way to prevent having duplicate content or incomplete pages that aren't ready for public viewing to be indexed and kind of mess up your rankings. So, and also, you know, if you have a page with some confidential information that's only meant for certain people, this is a great way to hide that as well. Now, one of the benefits of the Zoe platform when it comes to the robots.txt file is that it's automatically generated by Zoe. So all the folders that aren't supposed to be indexed are disallowed. Now, you don't need to know what to allow and what to disallow when using the Zoe platform. And then the next step would be once you get into Search Console, you're just going to be able to validate the robots.txt file and submit the sitemap. So some of the benefits and overview of the robots.txt and sitemap slider that you cannot see because I did not put it in here apparently. It is generated within the platform. You have the ability to adjust its priorities and its frequency. It'll save you a ton of time. It almost eliminates the human error aspect. And that's about it for that one. So the next one that we are going to move on to will be the meta tags. And hey, look at that. We actually have a slide. I know, it's impressive. So one of the first things that we'll talk about with the meta tags will be your title tags. So the title tags play a huge role in your rankings and your click-through rate. So the way that I prefer to do it, and everybody has their own methods, but one of the safest ways in order to prepare a title tag is to try to get your targeted keyword at the front, secondary keyword after that, and then possibly even the name of your company, depending on the length of the name of your company or your branded name slogan at the end of that. The other thing you need to be mindful of when it comes to title tags is the length of your title tags. Now there's a ton of different sites out there that offer title length checkers, and that's going to tell you whether or not you've exceeded the maximum character count, and they will also then provide like a preview of what that result would look like in the SERPs. Now we also, and I personally have a Excel spreadsheet that's already ready to go for that specific action, so if anybody wants to get a copy of that, feel free to email me when this is done at rcanuck@infront.com. I know that last name is kind of hard to spell, but I will make sure to get it out there for everybody if you guys want it. But it's just useful when measuring out your title tags and meta descriptions. So technically, you're not penalized for an excessive title length tag, but it's also not doing you any favors. And I'm pretty OCD about this, and I choose to go back through and make sure that all of my title tags are properly, the length is proper so that nothing's chopped off at the end. And once again, just having that your primary keywords that you're trying to rank for at the beginning, the better off you'll be. So next on to the meta description. Now, once again, the meta description is pretty important as it's going to be explained to the search engines and the people that would be looking for a page like yours, basically just what your page is all about. So you also want to keep your description below around 160 characters. And the Zoe platform actually has a cutoff to where it won't let you go past a certain character count. Now, in my experience, I've still found that cutoff provided is still a little bit excessive. So once again, I suggest using a free tool available, or once again, I will happily email you the spreadsheet that I've made that'll help you measure out the length of your description. Now, the doesn't technically help with your search rankings, but it does help with your click-through rate. And Larry Kim has some great content on description tags, so feel free to give that a Google. The last part is meta keywords, which is not supported by Zoe. So I'm not sure if anybody out there is still trying to work with the meta keywords, but I know within the majority of the community, or the SEO community, they've been kind of labeled outdated, and there's a lot of search engines and a lot of places just do not support them at all anymore due to the past history of keyword stuffing. So it's a huge opportunity in the past where sites and people have been just stuffing all the keywords that they want to rank for within their meta keyword tags. Now, I've personally seen meta keywords being a big roadblock to rankings for a site when doing an audit. It was causing a major conflict with the title tags and the meta description, so everything that I was doing on page wasn't registering at all, and I had to dig into the nuts and bolts and find out that that was because that there was already a good amount of meta keywords there that had been placed that were overriding everything and causing that type of problem. So I believe just for that current landscape of meta keywords and the process of moving forward, Zoe no longer supports the meta keyword setting. So you're not really missing anything. But there are a few search engines that do still support meta keywords, like I think it's DuckDuckGo and maybe a few other ones. So feel free to still implement those on your sites, but just be aware. You probably won't see anything beneficial from it from any of the major ones, and it could cause a roadblock with some of your other on-page SEO. Now, over on the right side of the screen, you'll see the process of updating the meta and title tags within the Zoe platform. There's a section on your product page, I believe that is called SEO. So you can scroll down there and you'll see what it is pulled already. Normally, I believe it pulls the content from the description, including the product name, and it shoves that into the title and then the description. So when you go in and edit that, there you will find with my wonderfully drawn blue underline pen, where you will insert the title tag that you are going after, and then also the description. And when you are done updating the title tag and the meta description, make sure you click on Done or the changes will not be saved. So previously when I started working within the Zoe platform, I think I went through about 2 or 3 hours of updating some pages, and then I would just publish that page thinking that it would save those changes that was made, and I was going back through there and I was wondering what in the heck happened to my title tags and my descriptions. Why did they revert back to what they were? And it was because I did not click I'm done upon making those edits. So make sure you click on Done, and then you can update the page. Now, we have moved on to the header tags. So one of the cool things that Zoe automatically does with your H1 tags is it automatically tags your product names, your category names, and all your page titles with the H1 tag. So the H1 tag is typically the most important tag on an individual page of your site. It's going to be, think of it as like as a book. You know, your H1 tag is the title of the book. H2s are the chapters. H3, H4, H5, H6 are the subsections of those chapters. So it's pretty important with the search engines to let them know what exactly that page is, the overall view of that page and what it's about. So it's used to introduce the content of that page as a whole. So if it's product, topic, or just the name of the page itself, it's going to tell those search engines that this is the most important text on that page. Now, so far within the Zoe platform, the only heading tags that I've had to manually do is the H2 tags within the description part of the product. I've personally found that by implementing the H2 into the description section and elaborating on that H2 a little bit, it significantly helped the rankings of the keywords that I was targeting for that product. So just for the simple fact that Google does place value on structured data, having your pages properly formatted with the heading tags is pretty important. So kind of a basic rule of thumb, if Zoe's already putting an H1 tag on your page, your category page, don't add another one to it. It's unnecessary. And if you decide to implement the H2 tag, use it sparingly and just try to be as descriptive as possible in order to give more information on the H1 in some manner. And over here, you can see exactly how that H1 is already implemented. I just took a screenshot of the product that I inspected it with the Google Chrome tool, and you can see that that product name, Cummins Own and RV Generator, is already labeled H1 tag, and I didn't have to do that. And over on the category page of RV and commercial generators, that's already tagged as the H1. So once again, didn't have to do that. Nice time-saving tool right there. And especially when getting your new e-commerce site, or if you're switching over to this, it's one less worry or headache that you have to deal with, depending on the size of your site, how many products you have. That would be a big pain in the butt having to circle back and go through and title all your pages that way. So now moving on to the structured data, schema and JSON. So one of the best parts of the Zoe platform that I found out, and I kind of just found out by stumbling upon it when I was trying to figure out how to implement it, is it automatically takes care of your product schema markup. Now, depending on your familiarity with that markup, it's code that you put on your site to help the search engines return more informative results for the users. So the first example right there is an example of our schema markup for some events. Colorado Springs SEO and Marketing Workshop and classes, and then below that is also giving you the event, the dates, and what the event is about. So that schema markup told the search engine to display a schedule of our upcoming workshops that we're hosting. And if you are someone who is interested in learning SEO or hiring us for work, this is incredibly helpful, and we had a great turnout because of it. Now, you're all familiar with HTML tags on your site, H1, H2, etc. Now, while that gives the browser an idea of how to display that information, it doesn't tell it what it means. So when we put that markup on our upcoming events, it went from knowing it had something to do with Google Partners Connect and our business to knowing exactly what it had to do with, which was that it was an event, what date it was on, and the topic of that event. Now, at this point, there are literally hundreds of data markup types. So if you currently have anything on your site, I can almost guarantee you that there's some sort of markup associated with it. And getting back to Zoe, I've worked on a lot of different CMSs, and a lot of different CMSs have different ways that you have to learn on how to implement the schema markup. Now, I just literally can't tell you how relieved I was when I was sitting there scratching my head trying to figure out, okay, I know I need to do some product markup here, but where in the world do I do it? And so I just ran the page through the structured data testing tool, and boom, everything was already set up perfectly. So that was a huge relief to me, and it saves a ton of time knowing that already all the products that are listed on this page already have the proper markup to it. So you can go and find that structured data testing tool provided by Google to test any URL or HTML file that you create to make sure it's properly set up. And it will give you an example of what it looks like right down there on that slide over on the right. And there's 0 errors, 0 warnings. So you can just Google structured data testing tool, and it'll be one of the first things that pops up by Google. Just put your URL or HTML file on it, and it'll tell you either how great it is or what you need to fix. And just a few bullet points real quick that you all can read right there, but they are important. So if you do the proper schema markup, you're going to be ranking better in the SERPs than sites without it. And I came across a few articles of the amount of websites that are currently using the structured data markup, and only 0.3% of all websites are currently using this right now. So you've got a huge potential and huge opportunity to increase your rankings if you go through and get all your events and products and, you name it. If you get all of that structured data, marked up properly, you've got a huge opportunity to increase your rankings. But one of the best things with the Zoe platform is just right out of the box, you're getting so many different things that would normally be very time-consuming, and depending on your technical level of skill, you could also be running into a lot of hurdles that this is just totally eliminating for you. So this saves you so much headaches and speeds the whole process up. Now, the next thing we're going to get to are social signals. Social signals, now these are a big unknown still in 2017. Back in 2015, there was some backtracking by Google's Matt Cutt, and then it was reiterated in 2016 by John Mueller about how social signals do not necessarily play any role in your search engine rankings. Now, some say it helps in rankings, others say it doesn't, but I think that they are pretty important, and due to how prevalent social media has become in our day-to-day activity, I can only imagine that they are going to become more and more important, as this is now basically the way that any sort of good content is shared, nowadays. I don't see anybody running a chain of email anymore of, share this blog article, but if somebody comes across a good blog article, it's so much easier, and everybody posts it to their Facebook and shares it, much quicker. So let's run through a few examples real quick. So let's say that every time I create an article for my blog, I post it onto all my social media profiles, and I'm getting minimal interaction. It's just me pushing all my personal content onto all my different channels. Now, it's highly doubtful I'm going to get much love from any search engines from that. Yeah, at least I'm trying, but I'm not going to receive much love or any huge boost in my rankings from that. I'm not going to look at my analytics and see, oh, I had a huge spike in organic traffic because I posted an article to my personal company Facebook. But on the flip side of that, let's say that every time I post these articles to my social media, and it's awesome content and all of a sudden people start interacting with it. They're clicking that link, which is then taking them to my site to read it or review the product. They start sharing it, or if it's a great deal, and they know a friend that has that wants one of my RV generators. It's only $80,000, not a big deal. Just share it with their buddy Bob, and he'll bust out his Amex. But everybody starts naturally engaging with that, that's going to indicate to the search engines that this post needs to be taken into consideration. So I do think that these social signals carry some weight. How much, that's hard to determine, and I really have no idea. I have seen clients of mine who continuously publish new and engaging content move up in their rankings pretty significantly. But who's to say really that those improvements aren't just temporary due to the maybe at the time how popular that little article or blurb was. So with how important social media has become and the amount of influence it has in everyone's day-to-day life, it would honestly be foolish to think that these engagements aren't being measured in some fashion. So maybe it doesn't carry any weight at all right now. I personally like to think it does. But history of how quickly algorithms can change and adapt to different factors is basically saying that there's a good chance you could get left behind if you're only focused on the current SEO landscape and you're not looking forward as to how these different channels are going to be playing a huge role down the road. So just a little brief overview of good social practice tips and some bad social practice tips. So even if you're not getting the type of engagement that you want, now there are a lot of companies that I've dealt with in the past and worked with in the past that they start publishing new content regularly, and they're putting it out for a month or two, maybe up to 6 months, and they're just not getting that much traction with it. You got to stay committed to it. Stay continuous. Don't give up on it because at some point down the road, it'll pay off for you. And when you do get any interaction with anybody through these channels, make sure you're engaging with them. People like that stuff. And be consistent with your posting. It doesn't mean you need to be on a schedule every Tuesday at 10:36 in the morning. I need to publish a blog article, but try to get something out, consistently. Another important thing is just use hashtags properly. So that I've also come across some things on, Twitter and on Instagram of people trying to get trying to build their user base quickly. And what they're doing is, say they have a picture of them at the beach, they are hashtagging, hiking in the mountains and totally unrelated things, which at that point just makes you look like you're basically hashtag stuffing. So be consistent, engage with your audience that is there, and try to learn how to use those hashtags properly. It'll only be beneficial to you. And also make sure that your content on your site is easy to share. That too is a very big thing. And the worst thing you can do at this point is just don't buy likes, shares, or followers. All these networks and the search engines, they can detect all of that stuff, and you're wasting a lot of money. So moving on to reviews. So personally, I know in my purchase history that I want to read reviews on products before I purchase it. That's mainly applies to a lot of my Amazon Prime purchases. I've gotten pretty good at weeding out paid reviews or spam reviews, and now on Amazon they've got the verified purchase ability. Now eventually someday I'm sure that people are going to find a way to game that system as well. But I believe it's around 90% of consumers now say that product and service reviews affect their decision on either purchasing an item or using a service. Your product page can typically sit stagnant once you've got everything right. So the nice thing about receiving reviews on a product page is that it does update the file modify date, which is then in turn going to tell Google that there was new published content. So that always helps your search engine rankings, especially when it comes to a product page. Now, the more reviews you get, the better. And typically, if a customer is leaving a review, they're also going to be leaving that targeted keyword within that review, which will in turn give that page then even a little boost for that word, or even widen your long tails by using phrases within that review that people search for as well. Now, one of the important things too, though, is there's a lot of different software platforms out there that will kind of filter out your reviews and give you nothing, let the public only see nothing but 5-star or 4-star reviews. Now, while that is great, it's almost like ads. I've become banner blind to a lot of ads. I've almost become 5-star blind to a lot of reviews because a lot of it looks no longer genuine. So if you are in a position in where if you receive a negative review on your Facebook, or if you receive a negative review on your business page, or you receive a negative review on your Google My Business, instead of freaking out about that, that is actually a huge opportunity for you to flip the script and maybe get that audience re-engaged. I know when I go personally searching for a product, one of the first things that I look for is let's take a look at the negative reviews and the date of those reviews. Now, sometimes that saves me a lot of money just because let's say I'm going shopping for a tent online, and the first thing I go and see is that it's all nothing but 5 stars, but there is that one-star review, and it was pretty recent, and it says, oh, this thing is, poorly made, and it fell apart on me within a week. Well, I'm probably going to, bounce out on that one. But let's say that you're a plumber or something in town and somebody leaves a poor review just because they're a little disgruntled about something that happened on their page. That will put you in a position where you can totally flip the script and engage with that client and maybe win them back over. But everything that you're doing to show how much you care about that client is publicly displayed for everybody to see. And if done properly, that can be one of the biggest tide-turning events within your review system out of everything out there. So I come from the mindset of thinking that almost negative reviews are the secret weapon towards getting extra business that you wouldn't have normally gotten in the first place. And then you've got some in the train of thought that think any negative review is a bad thing and I don't want to see it. But just due to the fact that everybody sees it that way, it seems like nowadays, having nothing but 5-star or 4-star reviews, kind of having that 1 or 2 negative reviews, it shows that your business is human, and it kind of validates you. But it gives you a good opportunity. But enough on that. So also having your Google My Business page properly set up is a huge deal nowadays too. So gathering Google reviews does play a large role in your local search results. So Google also aggregates reviews from all third-party sites where you're receiving reviews. So the more reviews that you can get across different platforms, the better. Now, I have seen a few different tactics for receiving reviews that have worked pretty well, but it all really depends on the type of business that you have. So you can add a review link on your website. You can work with follow-up emails. I've seen a lot of shops like smoothie shops or coffee shops offering a freebie or a discount for tagging themselves on social media at the location, or let's say post-purchase, they provide a coupon for leaving a review that they can use upon their next visit. You do have the ability to, there's also the option to receive those GMB reviews. You can search for, there's a tool out there, which I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's very easy to find, where you can create a custom link to your GMB page that you can then throw into a follow-up email that when people click on it, it immediately takes them to the review section of your GMB without them having to do anything except literally tell it how many stars they're giving and the review that they want to leave. So the kind of review guidelines for 2017 have a process of some sort in place, depending on your business, that's going to be reaching out to your customers to receive some reviews. Now, if they're great reviews and it's something awesome, promote those reviews on your website and your social media platforms. Maybe even write an article or get those testimonials up on your website. Respond and interact with all the reviews you get. Now, I'm not saying if you are let's say that you're a giant company and you're getting 100 reviews a minute, if you respond to every single one of those, you're going to look like a robot. But the ones that you want to get out there and respond to the most that you can. Interaction is a great tool, and it also gives people a level of trust when viewing those reviews, knowing that your company is who they say they are, you guys care, and you do what you say you're going to do. And like I said previously, if you do receive a negative review, don't freak out about it. Just always respond to it. This is an opportunity to win customers over, or win that disgruntled customer back over. Because negative reviews are usually read pretty thoroughly and people trust them. And also just make sure you have your GMB set up. Now the next thing we're going to get to is image optimization. So one of the top reasons for a high bounce rate is your poor page speed. And one of your top reasons for poor page speed out there is your images. So there's a lot of times when setting up a site that if you're not introducing optimized or compressed images, you're loading images that are just way too big for the server and way too big for the average user's device to be pulling up. So image size and compression plays a big role in all of that. So clearly you want to improve your page load speed as much as you possibly can. I have personally gotten frustrated within the process of trying to go to a site to say purchase something or just visit a website. And if it's moved too slowly with loading the images, or the page just seems to kind of come to a stop because it's having a hard time pulling in all that data, I'll get on out of there and I'll find a place to either get that item somewhere else that doesn't have a slow page loading time, or yeah. So make sure you're compressing your images properly. This does have a direct impact on your search engine rankings, since Google does place a high priority on page loading time. Now there's numerous ways out there to reduce the size of the file without losing any of its quality, depending on your CMS. gzip is great. There's TinyPNG. There's hundreds of other sites and plugins available to compress your images without losing any of its quality. And also, depending on the size of your e-commerce site, if possible, maybe implement a CDN, or content delivery network. Using a CDN will greatly improve your page speed and rankings, since Google's made it clear once again that page load time is one of their factors with search engine ranking. And not only that, but your users will be happy with the loading time, which means you'll have a smaller bounce rate, which should equal more sales and conversions. Now, not everybody or every company needs to go, well, what's a CDN? Do I need a CDN? Now, let's say that you're a thrift shop in Birmingham, Alabama, and you've got 25 products that you carry on your website. You're probably okay without a CDN. You just need to make sure that since all your traffic is probably coming in locally, just make sure that your images are properly optimized with the proper compression and so forth, and you'll be fine. Now, let's say that you're a Colorado standby company who sells generators all across the country. They use the Amazon CDN for their images. So If you're a customer up in New York State, or let's say you're a customer in Iceland, instead of trying to get that data and pull in from their location in Colorado or wherever Colorado Standby is hosting all their stuff, that Amazon CDN has towers and locations all across the world. So if they're in Iceland, they're also able to then pull that images and everything from the Iceland location, which then speeds up the whole process and makes everybody happy. Moving on to actually optimizing the image within Zoe, is you want to use the alt tag and the title tag. So Google can't see your images, but it can read them. And what it reads is what you write in the alt attribute area. So it was designed for people with visual impairments. So your alt text needs to be descriptive, to the point, and not stuffed with keywords. Title tag. How many times have you uploaded an image onto your site and totally forgot about the title tag? I'm guilty of it, a million times. There's been so many times that I've gone back and my file name is img underscore and a bunch of numbers. So your title tag is a good opportunity to give a good description of actually what that image is about, preferably with that main keyword that you're focused on being within it. Now, within the platform, Zoe recently had rolled out the ability to update these image tags within the product page. So when you go down to your main image of your product page, you click that little gear icon, then you click on the next part, and then it opens up the Update Image Tags box. And that is where you will enter your alt tag and your title tag. And once you do that, click Update Tags, save and publish your page, and your images are good to go. And the final slide is the product description. So one of the biggest things that I've seen when viewing or auditing an e-commerce site is the lack of any text regarding that product. No product description, no text anywhere. So if I'm searching for a hat, I've seen sites that just says baseball hat, and that's it. Now that basically means that that site and that page is never going to reach the first page of any search engine. So the more unique content that you can write about that given product, the better off your SEO efforts will be. But keep in mind, there's a few things you want to be mindful of when doing those descriptions. Make sure it has some quality to it. Make sure it's descriptive, and that you're not just writing things in order to stuff keywords in there. Don't copy any of so if you're a drop shipper or something for another company, don't copy that content from other sites. And avoid copy and pasting descriptions from manufacturers. So this is pretty much the opposite of unique content, and it can almost guarantee you that you'll never see good placement with that product on any of the search engines. So also I've seen people who have taken snapshots or screenshots of product descriptions and just put that image up on the page, or a PDF or even an iframe to display content about that product. Make sure your content is actually on the product page that it's supposed to be on, as you can then get that index and get it ranking for things. Try to get some of the keywords that you're targeting into either the description or the header of that, the H2 tag or H1, depending on your platform, and also into the body. Let's see here. I think now that is about all I have for right now on my slide. So I think now we would be opening it up for Q&A, or to just tell me how awful I did too. That's okay as well.
Before we get that far, first of all, thank you, Ryan, for all of this great information. There are a couple things I just wanted to go over before we hit the Q&A, but before I go over that, I'll just remind those of you who are on the call, especially those who joined late, that you can submit your questions using the questions feature. We've already received a few, and thank you for those who have already begun submitting your questions. We'll give you guys a moment to get your questions submitted, and just to be clear, when you submit the questions, we'll be moderating on our side, so we won't be typing the answers back to you. We'll be talking live about them. So before we do that, I just wanted to quickly change the presentation over to my screen real quick. I found your missing slide. It was in there. It was we have some weird things with PowerPoint sometimes, but I just wanted to put this up on the screen so everybody had a moment to actually see it. Basically, one thing that's important to note is that we have an XML sitemap app that's available free of charge for all Zoe merchants, which allows you to then submit your XML sitemaps, which includes the images. As you can see in the screenshot here on the right side, the sitemap generation on Zoe shows some of the customization options for the sitemaps. So what that does is it feeds the information to the search engines on a frequency of your choice, so that way they've always got the latest up-to-date information from you, and it's really designed so that way you don't have to worry about any human error getting into the file. So I just wanted to share that slide and put it up there for a moment so everybody had a chance to see what was being talked about there earlier, but just leaving it up there for a moment so people have a chance to read it. The second thing I wanted to mention is that a number of the things that Ryan talked about are actually features that are supported on Zoe, which is the good news. Part of what we try to do on our side is to put a foundation in place so that when you're working on SEO either on your own or with a partner like Infront Webworks, you're able to have basically a lot of the basics already covered. So one thing I did want to point out and mention for everybody to check out is to take a look at support.zoe.com and look for the SEO section. You're going to find a lot of great information in here. For instance, you'll find up the markup that we've implemented for that structured data that Ryan was talking about earlier. This is already enabled for all stores by default, so you do not have to do anything to take advantage of this. It's already live. It's part of what you're paying for as a Zoe customer. Similarly, you'll see a more detailed information about using the image alt and title tags if you're interested in what Ryan was talking about, custom URLs and other best practices for SEO. So we have some documentation there in case you want to dive deeper into Zoe-specific functionality, because I know that many times comes up. And I will just sort of echo one thing that Ryan said before we move to Q&A. We get a lot of customers that reach out to Zoe asking why their site is slow, and the very first thing we discover is that there are giant images on the page. So that is a very, very low-hanging fruit opportunity for any merchant to make sure that they're optimizing their images for the site. We have implemented some technology on the Zoe side to try to help. We do have some compression capabilities. We do detect when there are larger images than are necessary, and will, especially for mobile, serve up smaller versions of those images, and in some cases on desktop as well. It's not perfect tech though, so obviously you still want to do some compression on your own. And then the same thing goes for implementing your tags and so forth. It's best to make sure that you're doing that as you go. We do have a CSV capability though if you do forget to be able to go back and upload tags in bulk, and that's again covered in our documentation if you want to do it that way. So lots of ways to go about this, and we do try to make this technology as available as possible. So that way you have a little bit of an easier time when you're trying to implement these. We have a lot of questions, which is exciting. So let me get out of this, get over to our Q&A. I'm going to leave the directions on for questions for now in case those of you need a refresher. So the first question that came in, there was a comment during the presentation about using hashtags properly. Can you just define that a bit more and expand on what you mean?
Sure. So the easiest way is to think of it as, look, when you're looking at an image, when I've seen on Instagram or Twitter, when companies have been trying to hashtag themselves into relevancy, there has been a picture of a product. Let's say it's a phone. When you're looking at that phone, you want to try to keep your hashtags within that realm of that technology and that phone, and you can also kind of get an idea as to how many people are searching for certain hashtags, but there's plenty of software out there. But you want to stay kind of like how you would title tag an image. You want to make sure that that image is also relevant to the body text that the image is related to, and you want to make sure that that title tag is then related to that image. So kind of with the hashtags, you want to make sure that your hashtags stay within that same family of what you're trying to describe or promote. So if you're trying to sell a phone, make sure that those hashtags stay within the mobile technology field, and you're not also trying to tag, since it's 4th of July, just saying hashtag 4th of July to get, the 3 million people that are paying attention to that hashtag to look at your product, even though it has no relevancy to that hashtag.
Excellent. one of the merchants that wrote in asked about they sell unique products. They're basically one of a kind. So once they're gone, they're gone. And you were talking about product reviews. So I think you may have sort of touched on this with the Google Merchant reviews, but at that point, they're probably going to be better off getting store level reviews as opposed to product level reviews. Correct?
I would, yeah, absolutely.
And that's where they would use the Google Merchant reviews instead of like just going per product.
Yes.
Right? Great.
Correct. Because if you're losing that product, having a review on it and then having to redirect that URL to a different page is going to be doing you no good.
Absolutely. So another question around images. If you have multiple images for a product, do you need to be concerned about all of the images in terms of tagging them, or really just the main image?
I try to tag. It depends on how many images you're going to be having on the page and how unique they are. I have always been on the side of alt tagging all my images on the page. I'm also not carrying around 50 different images on one blog post. But depending on the amount of images that you have, you want to properly tag and title each one of your images that you put up.
Sounds good. We have a lot of questions asking about image sizes. Any recommendations about proper image sizes? I know that's a broad target, but maybe a little bit more guidance about how merchants can look at that.
There's a great tool available out there that helps to let you know about the size of your images on your website. It also lets you know about the length of your title tags and alt tags and meta descriptions and titles, and it's called Screaming Frog. What that also does is, so when images, you want to keep the images if possible, and now it's not possible on all the images, under 100 kilobytes. Did I even pronounce that right? 100 KB. I don't even know exactly what that term is. It's been a long day. But you want to keep it under 100 KB if possible to preserve page speed and loading time of that image. If you fall within the 100 to 300, I'd say you're safe. But once you get up to a megabyte, that's when you're going to be definitely suffering a lot of issues with page load speed. So there's a million different tools out there to compress those images, but if you can get it down to 100 KB or a little bit below that, that's your sweet spot.
Perfect. Next question about images is asking about the difference between an image title tag and an image alt tag. What's the difference between the two? How should you differentiate?
So the alt tag is the description basically of the title tag. So I'm trying to think of the proper way to describe that to you. So the alt tag is the alternative text. The title tag is what is going to be the actual description of the product or the image that you're looking to. And the title tag is going to carry more weight when it comes to a page with rankings. And the alt tag is going to be mainly used for the images, but it can give a good description of that image and give you an opportunity to get the keyword into it. I don't know if I properly explained that one, but I'm thinking of a better way to actually verbally explain that.
Yeah, I mean, almost if you use the same analogy that you used around the H1 tag, for instance, like the title of your book and then the description,
right.
I think that's the best way to look at it. Keeping in mind that your images many times are going to be a much more detailed version of what your product is. So like if you think about, I have a Hanes crew neck t-shirt and the picture is of a yellow t-shirt, your title and description may focus on the fact that it's a yellow t-shirt, so that way, when the next one's red, they're differentiated properly amongst
Exactly.
And that's probably the best way t-shirts are always a great analogy for me, so that's probably the best way to use it.
There we go. I wish I would have thought of the t-shirt analogy, but good jump in there.
Cool. So the next question is relating to the header tags. So the question that's asked here is, in the description area, is it wise to use the H2 tag on the first line and then the remainder of text at H3? So I'll start and then I'll pass to you. You should never have all of your copy in header tags. Most of them should be in, you might see P tags or paragraph tags. That's standard copy. Your headers are designed to be stronger weight information than the rest. So like if you continue the analogy of a book, your title is your H1, maybe your chapters are H2, you might have like little headers inside the chapters that are smaller, and that's what they're really designed to do. It's sort of a hierarchy of information. So you should never use header tags for 100% of your copy, but you can use them judiciously if you're using your description box for separate types of information. So it might be, product description, key features, pricing information. Like those could be little mini headers, and then you could have paragraph text under each of them. That's a hierarchy that could be maintained and more easily scanned by both people, since the tags will be formatted usually differently, and by engines. Ryan, you want to add to that?
Yep. That's very accurate, and especially when it comes to differentiating between the H1 and the H2. Like in the Zoe platform, the H1 is automatically grabbing your product name, and then the H2 gives me the opportunity to elaborate upon that product and get some more keywords within there without it being a negative part.
Perfect. This question came in, and I did briefly touch on this, but I'll just sort of reiterate the answer. Does Zoe compress images on the fly? We do to a certain degree, but it does not work for everything. So we do still recommend uploading optimized images up front. I should note that we do have some basic CDN capabilities in place as well that does spread your images across to other servers, but it is a bit more limited than some of the more fully featured solutions. So that's why you may still see some websites using CDNs of their own instead of Zoe. But basically we do have a CDN in place by default included in all packages. So I think that actually is done through Amazon as well. So just as another note there to share with all of you. Question about writing descriptions. Should list of features and benefits included in description, or should there be a tab created using the capability in Zoe labeled features and then put it there? Is there one way or another that can be better, or do they each have the pros and cons?
I have not experienced anything with using different tabs for it, so everything has been done within the same box, and I've seen great results from it. So I don't have the background of working on Zoe, of working in those different environments to give you a exact yes or no answer to that, or which way is better, which way is worse.
Understood. Not a problem. So for that one, I would say, just from my experience on Zoe, really at that point, the tabs are just sort of styled structure, so they do provide their own structure. You have to really look at the design that you're presenting to your users and what's going to be the cleanest for them. You don't want to overwhelm them with information, but at the same time, you don't want to use tabs if you really have kind of a pretty light page otherwise. So I recommend using them when you have a lot of information to convey. I've seen some great results when people have to share like tables of information on more complicated products, using the tabs effectively there to be able to display the table in one tab, a description on another, and so on and so forth. And then they'll usually pop reviews into one of those tabs there just to complete the set. But for simpler sites and simpler pages, usually tabs can be avoided, I think, and just use the header tags to break out what you're doing. So the next question is relating to where do you find the image alt tag and image title tag? So when you're working with images, there's a little wrench icon that appears in the top right corner. That is one way that you're able to update them, so that lets you edit it on an individual level. I'm actually pulling up right here our support documents so you can see it on my screen here. So when your images section of your products, there will be a little wrench, and you can change the image labels and do it right there. On the home page and info pages, inside the media library of the drag and drop editor, there is an add alt text link that's built in there, which then allows you to define your search engine tags for that. And then categories pages pull the data from the product pages. So since your product images obviously are already set at the product level, it'll carry into the category level, so you don't have to do them again. It sort of pulls that information from other places. So hopefully that helps explain where you can find it. And then we always remind you, if you have specific Zoe questions, feel free to send in a support ticket to our team. They're able to help you with all of these specific types of questions as well, and make sure that you know where you're looking for this. A question about uploading sizes images for both computer and mobile. The thing is, we do have some tech in place to make mobile images smaller, but mobile devices, people think about how powerful things like iPhones have become nowadays, but really they're smaller versions of your computer, but they have usually a slower internet connection. They usually have a slower chip inside to run everything. They usually have less memory to get it all done. So they just are a slower variation of what you have on your home computer, right? So we do recommend simplicity, and that means, if you're using product images with a white background, those are usually end up being smaller because there's less complexity to them. All those types of things you see becoming much more common just because for mobile it improves the experience. There are exceptions to the rule, of course, but if you're trying to make the most of mobile, then definitely aim for product images that just focus on highlighting the product, keep it nice and light and simple, and you'll usually have the best results. Let's see. Your last slide had the bullet, create a good list of features and benefits, but you did not mention this or I missed it. Is this really necessary? I don't have the slides in front of me at this point, but Ryan, maybe you can speak to that.
For the product description?
I think so, yeah.
I believe that's for the product description. It isn't as vital. It's not if you don't do it, something bad is going to happen, but it is just a huge opportunity to expand on the content that you're labeling for that product and also to insert more keywords that you would be targeting. So it's always going to be beneficial as long as you're not copying, pasting that information onto the page. It's always going to be beneficial to introduce new custom and quality content to that product page. So if you have the opportunity and the ability to do so, I would absolutely do it.
Excellent. Someone asked for a definition of CDN. CDN officially means Content Distribution Network, and the definition of it is basically, if you think about any sort of computer, you have it sitting somewhere. So for instance, Zoe's main setup is in New York City. But people don't live in New York City. People live all over the world, and the further away you are from the machines, the slower a site will be, just simply by the nature it takes a certain amount of time to get data from point A to point B. And so what a CDN does is it takes the types of content that don't require being on that computer, say an image, because an image will look the same no matter where it is, and it saves it to plenty of other machines all over the world. So let's say you're now in Sydney, Australia, instead of New York City. You will have a server near you which will give you the images, so all that really needs to be called is the pages portions of the page that have to be generated by that server. It ultimately then leads to a better performance for the customer in Sydney or wherever else they happen to be. And so that's why CDNs are so popular. They really help to take the content that can be served from anywhere and bring it closer to the customers, which just makes sure that your site then loads faster. So that's why a CDN can be beneficial. But as Ryan said, if all of your customers are local to you and your server's local to you, then you're probably not going to see much of a benefit from a CDN. But if you're working with customers all over the place, it immediately starts to prove to be a benefit.
Right.
So if you have 12 images of 100 kilobytes, are you safe, or did you just trip over the 1 megabyte limit? And I think the 1 megabyte.
No, you're safe. You're safe.
Yeah, I mean the whole purpose of having smaller images is so that way if you have more of them, you're not going to make the page loading. What we've seen though is we've seen pages with 12 1 megabyte images, so that's a 12 megabyte page. And imagine trying to load that on a phone where you don't have like a 4G connection, which is still pretty common in a lot of parts of the country. For instance, here in the U.S. and in other parts of the world, even more so. That's why you just want to make sure your images are smaller. Yep. And then the last question that we have is just if you could just repeat the name of that tool that they're questioning. Was it Screen Frog or something else? Because they just want to make sure that we have it right.
Screaming Frog.
Screaming Frog.
Screaming Frog. Mm-hmm. And it's a free tool, and it's awesome. It's one of the best things out there to get an overview of the health of your site as far as file size, title length, description length, and everything.
So what I'm going to do is I found the website here. I'm going to paste that URL right now into the chat so everybody has it, but it's screamingfrog.co.uk. That's what you're looking for to be able to take advantage of the tool. Actually, there's a lot of tools here that are very beneficial here, so I'm sure you'll all get a lot out of this. Well, with that, we have reached our time, and it looks like we got through just about every key question that we had. So if you didn't have your question answered, please feel free to email me at josh@zoe.com. You can also let me know what you thought of this webinar, and let me know if there are other topics that you are interested in, so that way we can help you out and continue to educate you about ways that you can improve your business. We do want to remind you that we have more webinars coming up. You can visit zoe.com/merchant-webinars to see what they are. But the next one we have coming up is in 2 weeks. That is a sales tax bootcamp with TaxJar. This is a really key time of the year coming up for those of you who have to collect sales tax, because there's generally quarterly reporting and submissions that go to both state and other city venues and so forth. So TaxJar is designed to really help manage that and help you manage that. So they're going to educate you about things you should know as well as how they can help. So feel free to join us 2 weeks from today, July 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, we'll always have a recording available afterwards if you can't make it. We will have another couple of sessions following up on this. We're just finalizing the details, so keep an eye out. We'll be announcing those in the next few days. In the meantime, we really want to thank Ryan and the Infront Webworks team for helping us with this presentation today. We want to remind you that if you have any questions and you'd like to talk to them about it, you can also reach out to me or to them, and we'll be both happy to connect you to the right people on their team to get some help. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ryan, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.